Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Designworks. This is the design initiative for the Rotman School of Management. I'm Heather Fraser, the director, and I'm here with our dear friend, Dave Patnaik. We're very honored to have him back. He was here a couple of years ago and spoke about need finding and design and innovation. He's here with his colleague, Pete Mortensen, over here. He's the director of communications at Jump, both from Jump Associates. We're really, really happy to have Dave here for a bunch of reasons. One, he's a big friend of the school. He and Pete have done all kinds of work with Rotman to sponsor students, and they actually helped us put together a big design tour when we were out in California. Very gracious hosts. We're also
due for another one, aren't you?
We are. Yeah, I'm going to hit you up for that one. And most importantly, for those of you that are in the design field and appreciate design thinking, everything begins with understanding human beings. And Dave has written this fantastic book. I don't know, has anybody actually gotten their hands on it yet? This is a must-read for everyone. This is the foundation, I think, of success for every single company. I think that Dave has been very generous in his insights and his wisdom of this book. He's the founder and principal at a design firm called Jump in California, which is Jump Associates is a growth strategy firm, very successful, fantastic group of brains and energized people who advise all kinds of huge companies all over the world. Dave is also on the faculty at Stanford, where he teaches need finding, so this book really comes from his heart. And also, I can't think of a better person to write this because he really has not only a big brain, he's got a gigantic heart. Very generous person. And like I said, a good friend of the school.
Heart's larger than the brain, I'm afraid. So, please, sorry, I interrupted.
So, what we're going to do tonight? So, first of all, a welcome to both Pete and Dave.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you. And what we thought we'd do tonight, as opposed to standing up with a bunch of PowerPoints and giving a lecture, I'm going to ask a series of questions that are based on having read this book, and it gives Dave just an opportunity to talk about the book and his wisdom and share some of his experience with us. And what I'd like to do is also leave plenty of time at the end because I'm sure everybody's going to have questions that they'd like to ask. And afterwards, we also have a reception in the back, a little cocktail party. You can get a chance to ask them questions directly, a little book signing, and the book on sale. So there you go.
Thanks.
Welcome. So first of all, with a basic question, the premise behind the book, Dave, you believe that empathy, which is developing our ability to walk in other people's shoes, is the single most important element for business success today. Why don't you begin with, why is that important?
Yeah, it's interesting, and as you mentioned, my day job is at Jump Associates in California, and we work with companies trying to help them to innovate, and not innovate like they just need a single big thing. They need to innovate sustainably over time, today and tomorrow, good times and bad. So even right now, there are some companies who are doing well. And so the question is, what's the difference between firms that have been able to do that and those that haven't? And when we looked at our experiences working with clients, the biggest difference between companies that were able to sustainably grow over time and those that weren't was this kind of innate intuition they had, this gut sense for the outside world that they had, this sense of empathy. Meaning, for an individual, you all get what empathy is. Empathy is the ability to step outside of yourself and be, walk in someone else's shoes and kind of get their point of view. And for a company, it's the ability to get every single person in the organization to understand folks outside of their building. Like the ordinary folks who actually pay the bills by buying our products and services. So that a place like Nike, everybody who works on a running shoe tends to be a runner themselves. And if the market research isn't so good, it's okay because they have that experience, that innate understanding, and the shoe ends up being pretty good nonetheless. And so we saw there was a huge difference between companies that really had that gut sense, that intuition, that widespread empathy, compared to companies that were kind of running on PowerPoint. PowerPoint. Oh, is there like some PowerPoint sales guy in the audience? That's right.
So you discuss in your book how large corporations have really disconnected in many ways from their customer and the people out there that they ultimately serve. What do you think has caused that?
I think it's that we have kind of over-indexed over the last 30 years on the fact that we need to be fact-based in our decision-making. Right? I mean, the point is that all of us are wired to care. We are all born with this innate ability to connect with other people. This is what we all do. It's why we're here, and gathering together. And the problem is that companies do a really great job of systematically beating that out of us. They tell us that, it's just business, it's not personal, and leave your emotions behind. We're trying to make rational decisions here. And so they ask you to kind of check half your brain at the door when you come into work every morning. And as a result, I'm worried that we are creating an entire generation of assistant marketing managers who believe that if they have 5 good bullets on a PowerPoint page, they understand their business. And they don't realize that their business isn't on that piece of paper. It's out in the world, in the houses where people are living their lives, in the offices where they're doing their jobs, and in the stores where they're buying their products. It's not just something that you can represent in a graph.
So there's a couple of parts to that. One is what great companies do, and then the next part is what can you teach them. What do the companies that are good at this, you mentioned Nike, and you've got several other clients that you work through this with, what do they do on an everyday basis to actually stay connected and engaged with their market?
Yeah, it's interesting. A lot of you guys were not necessarily good at market research, right? It wasn't like they were doing a lot of focus groups or surveys or things like that. They were just kind of very little things, experiential stuff that they did every single day. I mean, I'll give you an example. We spent a lot of time with Harley Davidson. And when you go to Harley Davidson, they're located in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and you drive up into the parking lot, and you go to where visitors parking normally is, which is up front, right? And you go up there, and you see this big sign, and it says, Harley Davidson motorcycle parking only, no cages. You guys know what a cage is? It's a car, right? Because a car is a cage that protects you and locks you in and prevents you from kind of like embracing your God-given right, which is to be free and experience the entire world. And so if that's what you want to do, if you want to be safe inside your little cage, that's fine. But this place is for motorcycles, right? And if you just drove up in a rented Taurus from the airport, welcome to Harley Davidson, but parking is in the back. Right? So it's just in little ways, and you walk through the environment, and the whole place smells of leather. I mean, it just seems like people who are there, they ride Harleys. I'm serious. I was just, people with like braids that go down to the back of their waist, and these are marketing executives, with long braids. Guys, right? And so in just little ways, and you'll see the walls are covered with photographs of all the different rides that people went on and memorabilia and trophies from different festivals they've gone to. And every executive is required to go out riding to one of these festivals at least twice a year. Right? So in just little ways, they stay connected with the rest of the world. They don't they don't even use the word customers at Harley. As one executive told me, she said, we call them riders because we are them and they are us. That's very different from market research.
Interesting. And then when it comes to teaching, so a lot of people would say that companies have become quite disconnected with their customers, and it's important going into the future that people are more connected and have more empathy. It's a big word these days, but what do you actually do? And you teach need finding at Stanford, which is the root of all this.
The problem. The
root of it all.
Exactly.
What do you get them to do to exercise that empathy muscle?
Yeah, the biggest thing we try to do is to get people out in the world to actually spend time with folks. So, for instance, in my class, the class I teach called Need Finding, I get a lot of talented product designers and folks who like to make stuff, right? And the only reason many of them are taking my class is because it's required. Right? So they can't graduate unless they take this. And so they're in there, and many of them start off thinking, this is a real waste of time. And then we kind of like force them to get off campus and get outside the world and spend time with folks. So we do a project which we call the Moccasins Project. And the Moccasins Project comes from the old saying, you should not judge another man unless you've walked a mile in their moccasins. And so we say you have to pick somebody else, it could be anyone, but you have to walk in their shoes and see the world through their eyes. And so some people go out and study paramedics, and other people study newscasters, and some people we've had one group study lion tamers. We've had folks put on fat suits and see what it's like to be morbidly obese. But just getting folks who these Stanford students are great because they're hyper smart, but to get to that level of excellence, they've had to be a little bit self-centered their entire life, thinking about their own problems and their own issues, and just getting them to realize that if you want to succeed in life, the secret to success is to stop being such a selfish bastard and care about other people, right, is I think the shift that we're trying to cause in folks. And that is the secret to success, not only in life but in business.
You want to share your first experience? You know,
yeah. See, I took that
Share?
class.
Yeah.
Yeah, I took that class.